Hey everybody, before we get into the meat of the video, I'm recording this on Wednesday night when I otherwise should have been covering and writing about a Calgary Flames game in Los Angeles. Obviously, everyone's heard about the terrible fire situation in the area, and hopefully that resolves itself really soon, and not too many people are affected by it. But thoughts go out to everyone in the LA area. I'm going to include a link or two in the description to organizations that are providing aid or support in the LA area, and hopefully things don't last for too long. I've been really fortunate to be able to cover a lot of Flames Kings games over the years and get to know a lot of people who cover the Kings, live in the area, who are Kings fans and otherwise affiliated with the LA Kings. And it's a tough situation. So hopefully everything resolves itself right. And now on to the video. Well, we're basically at the halfway point of the 2024-25 National Hockey League season, and the Flames aren't where people thought they would be. And this isn't one of those videos where we go, oh man, they suck. It's the opposite. Before the season began, I think a lot of folks looked at the composition of the Calgary Flames, and more importantly, a lot of the names that exited the Calgary Flames over the past 12 to 16 to 18 months, and went, they're not what they used to be. And that's true. They're not what they used to be. And so I think some very smart hockey people and, odds makers, pretty much everyone across the gamut, looked at the Flames roster and went, they might struggle. And so predictions were, generally speaking, that the Flames would be near the bottom of the table. Our friends at Daily Faceoff do division by division breakdowns. They predicted the Flames would be 6th or 7th in division. The odds makers had the Flames 6th from the bottom in terms of Stanley Cup odds and playoff odds. The folks at The Athletic said the Flames would be, I believe, 28th. And so, those were very, detailed, astute predictions with a lot of things that went into them. And they're all wrong, because here we are sitting at the halfway point, and the Flames are pretty much neck and neck with Vancouver for the final playoff spot in the Western Conference, and they've been sort of in the playoff mix for the majority of the year. And that is not where people thought they would be. So as we hit the halfway mark, our simple question here is, how the hell are the Flames doing this? How are the Flames where they are midway through the season, and how did so many people, including, people in this video right now talking to you, how do we all get it so wrong? Let's dive in. Well, I'm not going to speak for any of my media colleagues, but here's roughly kind of the four things that I see as the things that made the Flames buck the trends. And we'll go through them in detail, but I'll just summarize them very quickly. First of all, the goaltending. Then 5-on-5 play. A bounce back from Jonathan Huberdeau. And finally, this is sort of a broader statement, the kids in the youth movement. So let's delve into each one of these things, because I think they all deserve a little bit of attention. All right, the goaltending. ESPN's been getting beaten up a bit at midseason for their projections. They did tandem rankings for all the NHL tandems in net at the beginning of the season, and they ranked the Calgary Flames at 30th. The Athletic had them ranked 31st. And the main reason for that is the Flames no longer have Jacob Markstrom. He's in New Jersey. And the two things that people were skeptical about was, hey, can Dustin Wolf, who was okay in 23-24 in sort of a yo-yo role. He was the third goaltender, and he was sort of up and down throughout the year. He didn't get a long run until the very end of the season when the team was kind of depleted, and his numbers weren't great. And he didn't look terribly comfortable until the very end of the season. And so there was some healthy skepticism about whether or not Dustin Wolf could translate what made him so effective in the Western League and in the American Hockey League to the NHL level consistently. So far he has. There's also some skepticism that Dan Vladar, who had been working through a hip injury that eventually required surgery for the better part of 2 years, if he'd be able to bounce back. If you're a goaltender, hip surgery is pretty major. We don't need to get into the gross parts of it, but the hip socket is basically a bone socket covered in tissue. And if you're a goaltender, the hips are very important. And if the labrum, the tissue layer, the hips get torn or bunches up or any kind of stuff happens to that, it's bad. The surgery to repair it is not fun. And all in all, it sounds like it would suck to have a bad hip, especially if you're a goaltender. But, even regular people who don't play goaltender with bad hips, life ain't great. And so after the major surgery, would Vladar be able to be close to what he was when he began his tenure with the Flames? And the answer is mostly yes. The Flames have amongst the best 5-on-5 goaltending in the league. If you factor in special teams, which we'll get into in a bit, they're a little bit more than league average. And for a team that, you lost a Vezina contender netminder and you replace him with a rookie and a guy coming off a bad injury and your league average, that's pretty good. And especially 5-on-5, they're well above league average. So they're doing very well. Part of that is Dustin Wolf has had a really, really impressive rookie season. He's been given a lot of the favorable matchups, weaker oppositions, first half of back-to-backs. His usage skews a bit heavier on home games than Vladar's does. And as a result, Wolf has 13 wins. He's the rookie leader in basically every goaltending category. He has he's 13, 6 and 2, 2.6 goals against average, 914 save percentage. He's second in the league at 5-on-5 save percentage. Only Anthony Stolarz of Toronto has a better 5-on-5 save percentage. So it's hard to understate how impressive Wolf has been this year. But it's also hard to I think it's difficult to really articulate how useful and how strategic the Flames have been with using Dan Vladar. Colton Pankew over at Daily Hive recently did a piece breaking down sort of how Vladar has been used and how that makes Dustin Wolf's life easier. And, Vladar's numbers aren't great. 6-8-5, 308 goals against average, and an 888 save percentage. They're nothing to write home about. They're about middle of the pack, a little bit below middle of the pack in the league. But Vladar's job is to make Dustin Wolf's job easier, and he's been very successful at that. And if you make the case that the Flames primarily are close to the playoffs because Dustin Wolf's been so damn good, a lot of the credit has to go to Dan Vladar. And a lot of the credit has to go to the Flames goaltending department and coaching staff for using both of those guys the way they have, because, Vladar is more of a veteran guy, and maybe he might not have the upside that Wolf does, but he's been really good at helping bring out the best in Wolf, and I think it's been one of the more under the radar stories in the league, just how useful and how valuable Dan Vladar has been. And Dustin Wolf is a fairly prominent Calder Trophy contender, I think, because Vladar has allowed him to be with how he's been used and how it's allowed Wolf to be used. So the goaltending has been better than expected, and as a result, if you have goaltending, you have a lot. And because the Flames have goaltending, it's allowed them to paper over a lot of the other challenges they've had in their lineup this year. So the Calgary Flames have actually been pretty good at 5-on-5, and that's important for a reason we'll get into in a second. Let's just go through really quickly how the Flames did at 5-on-5 and special teams this year and last, and you'll sort of get an idea of what I mean. So a year ago on special teams, which is power play and penalty kill combined, the Flames had a -2 goal differential, which means special teams got outscored by the other team. This year, they have a -15 goal differential, which is 13 goals worse, and we're still halfway through the season. So they're on pace to be significantly worse, probably something like 20, 25 goals worse than last year at special teams, unless things turn around. But midway point, 13 goals worse. That's not great. But if you look at 5-on-5 play, last year they had a -14 goal differential. Not great. This year, with a depleted lineup compared, at least on paper, compared to a year ago, they're at +3. They've outscored their opposition by 3 goals at 5-on-5. That's an improvement of 17 goals. They don't score a lot. They're third from last in the NHL in goals per game and goals per 60 minutes. But they don't allow very much either. They're second from last in goals against in the league. And as a result, they don't need, they don't score a lot, but they don't need to score a lot to win games. They're in a lot of games because their goaltending has been good. They're also in a lot of games because their overall defensive structure has been good. They've found a playing style that's allowed them to support their goaltenders with, structured defensive play. And it's also allowed them to, really wear down their opposition. And It's a playing style that's kind of physically and mentally taxing. It's a play style that basically says we don't have any stars, so we basically have to be on our game all the time because they can't afford to make mistakes because they no longer have a Kachuk or a Gaudreau who can help them outscore their mistakes. So they basically have to play close to mistake-free hockey. And it's a challenging style, but at 5-on-5, it's been pretty effective. And through 40-odd games, the Flames have been one of the better 5-on-5 teams. They're stingy, and they don't score a lot of goals, but their stinginess allows them to get away with scoring not a lot of goals. And, halfway through the season, they're in the thick of things because they've found a way to play, and they found a team identity, they found a playing style that's really cohesive and really consistent with how they need to play. And so far, they've managed to make it work. This is a simple one. The veterans are doing pretty well. And by the veterans, I'm just going to pick on Jonathan Huberdeau and Nazem Kadri. Nazem Kadri has 28 points in 40 games so far. He's basically scoring at last year's scoring pace, which is pretty decent. He was a consistent, pretty reliable player in 23-24. He remains so in 24-25. The big story is Jonathan Huberdeau has sort of continued what he was like at the very end of last season. He has 30 points in 40 games. His points per game has gone from 0.64 to 0.75, which, you're paying him $10.5 million. You'd like him to be over a point per game, but compared to where he was to where he is now, he's really progressed his game. He's offensively dangerous. He playing the penalty kill now, and his overall two-way play is much improved, and as a result, he can play, I think, with guys that don't have as well-rounded a game and be effective. And he's been quietly a really effective two-way player, but his two-way play, I think, has allowed him to be a much more effective offensive player, and as a result, his scoring's up. And Huberdeau will always be a lightning rod for criticism because of his contract, but I'm going to invoke what I call the Matt Stajan principle. I'm not going to hold a player responsible for the contract he's offered. You can only really hold a player responsible for the standard of play they present, and Huberdeau's standard of play right now is the best we've seen from him as a Calgary Flame, and I would say it's up there with how he played at times in Florida. In a sense, I think his two-way game is actually better than he was in Florida. So, Huberdeau is much closer to what the Flames need him to be, and Kadri is holding up his end of the bargain too. And as a result, the Flames are getting some timely goals from guys they need timely goals from. And finally, in a sense, the kids are doing really well. And by the kids, we've already talked about Dustin Wolf, we talked about goaltending, but you can go down the list of rookies and young pros, guys who are still establishing themselves as NHL players. Connor Zary, Matt Coronado, Jacob Pelche, Braden Pahal, Kevin Ball, Martin Pospisil. All these guys have sort of really taken steps to sort of establish themselves as everyday NHLers, and really establish themselves in specific roles and find niches for themselves. Braden Ball might be one of the more reliable third-pairing defensemen in the NHL, and I don't think we're really talking about it very much because he plays such a quiet game. He has 3 points all season, but he's really good at the role he's been given, and if you go up and down the list, the Flames have a lot of young players who've really been given an opportunity to grab hold of a role, and I think they've been really effective at grabbing hold of roles. And, at the end of the day, the whole concept behind the Flames going into their youth movement, their retool, rebuild, rehabilitation, whatever word you want to use to describe the process of the Flames, not retaining a lot of those veteran UFAs in the last couple of years and allowing some of these younger faces to step in. You go up and down the lineup, I think, almost to a man, the guys who've been given opportunities to take on these roles for the first time or for the first year or two of their careers, almost all of them have really taken hold of it. And, while they haven't been perfect, I think you can look at the overall body work and see the progress that's being made and go, okay, yeah, this will be a successful season. And, I know folks will always, Flames fans either want the Flames to be bottom 10 so they can get a very good draft pick or win the Stanley Cup. But, the mid-years, if you're not doing one or the other, there's a process hopefully at play where the team is able to sort of build themselves up and build an identity, build a system, build a style, and then bring in young players who can sort of drive the bus and really put their stamp on it. And this has been a season where even if the Flames don't make the playoffs this year, they're going to be close. And more importantly, I think a lot of these young guys will be able to take this year, regardless of whether or not they play past April 17th. I think they can take it this year as a very big net positive for their development and for the development of the team as a whole. So, playoffs would be nice, but I think overall you look at progress organizationally, and I think, so far, while it hasn't been all sunshine and roses, there's a lot of nice things to be pleased with if you're a Calgary Flames fan through 40 games. So that's all I got. What do you think? What do you think is the secret to the Flames' success through 40 games? And you can't all just say Dustin Wolf, because that's an easy answer. It's probably one of the right answers, but it's an easy answer. So if you have a different answer, please send off in the comments. If you like this video, please click the like button. If you really like this video, please click subscribe. If you know anyone who'd like to watch me chatter about the Calgary Flames on YouTube, please share this video with your friends and chime off in the comments about what you'd like to see, what you'd like to hear, and any questions you have as we go along. I started making videos on a regular basis late last season. I plan on continuing doing it until either I run out of time or I run out of things to talk about. So please, chime in with anything you're curious about. And, once again, appreciate everybody tuning in. And thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time.